Hello everybody. In this video tutorial, I will show you how you can leverage the page objects framework, and I'll show you a quick example here with the Bing search. So this is the feature file that we have, and I'm hoping that you all have the similar project completed. But let me go over quickly what we have, and then I'll focus on changing or custom basically leveraging the page objects. So I have the feature file. Let's take a look at the step definitions here. I have a step definition. I have steps definitions defined, given, when, and then. And then I am using the Bing search class here, and I have referenced the Bing search class at the top using required relative. And Bing search class, once I create it, then I call different methods: visit page, enter search criteria, search, and verify search results. So let's take a look at the class here. I have initialized, so when I create a new, it will initialize a browser instance here, and then I'm calling the visit page, which actually goes to the Bing page. Then I find the text element and then set the actual criteria or search criteria, what I'm searching for on the Bing. And then when I click search, when I call the search method of the Bing search class, I actually click on the field, the button, and then finally verify that certain criteria exist on the page or not in the search results. Let's take a look at the environment.rb. So this is what we have currently. I am including the water jam, and I'm including the Bing URL. I have defined a global variable here. Let's take a look at the hooks. I have 3 different hook method defined, but nothing is there is no code as part of being executed as part of the hook methods. Now hopefully you guys remember when to use before hook, and this is after hook. So before when you run a feature file, and let's say you have multiple scenarios in the feature file, so before every scenario, before do and end block, code block gets executed, and at the end of every scenario, this after do code block gets executed. Okay, so that happens for every scenario, before and after. So let's take a look at it. See what we need to do when we say we need to use the page objects. So I'll go back here. So page object is nothing but gem, or that includes the test automation framework. For it again, it's a framework, so you have to do it certain way. You have to get familiar with different methods available in the page object. You have to get familiar with how you can include the page objects in your classes. You also need to get familiar with how to call the page objects classes, basically from your step definitions. So those are 3 important parts. Now I'm assuming you all have page objects installed. If not, you can go to the actual command prompt cmd and gem install page object, and this one will take care of installation for the page object framework. Once it's installed, then the next step would be to include in your project. Here you have to define, this is where require page object, so you have to define that in env.rb. And second thing would be the world. You have to declare the world page object page factory. So what it is, it's a context. It establishes the context with the page object framework. So you define that in the env.rb once, and you don't have to, and I'll show you quickly. You don't have to include the required relative everywhere. It establishes the context with the page objects So any class that includes the page object module, it will become part of this context and is available in your project to refer from any Ruby files. So let me go ahead and do this quickly here so that you understand. So I am in the env.rb and let's say require page object. Okay. Then next step would be to declare one, and here page object and page factory. Okay. So this page factory is a module part of the page object gem. Okay. So that's what we're going to include, and that actually does a lot of work for us. Okay. You don't need to know the internals how it works, but this one is important for you to know that this you will need this for establishing the context with the page object framework. Okay. So that all your objects, any object you create as part of the page objects, it will become available throughout your project. All right, so once I have that, let's move on from to the next step. The second thing you're gonna do is in the before hooks, you're gonna establish the actual browser object. So you declare a browser instance variable and initialize a water WebDriver and Chrome. Get a handle to the Chrome browser. And in the after do, which runs after every scenario, you close the browser. So before running any scenario in your project, you will be getting handled to the browser basically window, and it will be available via add browser variable. And after running every scenario, it will close out the browser. Okay. So let's go back. Now let's go and implement the page objects. So there are a couple of things here. In order to include the page object in your frameworks, in your actually class. So what I mean by that is, let's go back to the Bing search class and let's see how it changes once we. So this Bing search class currently is based on the object-oriented programming, and it's a simple class where you have initialize and a few other methods. But when you want to modify this for the page objects, you need to reference the page object module. That is part of the page object framework gem or page object gem, and then you need to modify the methods accordingly. So remember, we already initialized the browser instance in the env.rb. In any scenario it runs, actually in the hooks, any scenario is run, we will get this browser instance, which whatever browser you define, it will initiate the browser, and then it will close out. So it's kind of like a redundant here. Now we no longer need this initialization here because we already defined that in the in other method. Now, how does the URL navigation works? So this particular method in the traditional OOP class, you are actually defining a method and then clicking, then go to, that is a water driver method that you are calling. But once you declare page objects, there is a method called page_URL, and this method will simulate what you have done here. Okay, so page URL takes an argument called URL, and here this variable contains the URL. So with one line of code, you can eliminate the visit page method. Okay, so this one will take care of the visit page that we custom wrote for the Bing search class. Okay, and you know the Bing URL. The Bing URL is defined in env.rb, and this is our URL. So that's so whenever this method page URL, and I'll show you how do you go to the page. So for now, let's just define that here. The next step would be to actually declare the all the data elements or the controls that you are dealing with as part of your automation test. So here we are dealing with two controls specific. One is a text box, it's a search criteria text box, and second one is a button which we are clicking. Um, so in the traditional basically way, you will be doing like this within each method. But when you use leverage the page objects, you can simply define, basically copy and define that at the top of your class, so that it's available throughout the class. Now, as soon as you do that, you will need to specify the name for the field. So let's say we call a search box. You can name it anything, but I'm defining this search box, and that points to this element, which is a text box. Okay. Similar way, let me go and do this button here. And again, I'm going to give some name here, search button, and then it points to this button which has ID called sub underscore form underscore go. Okay, so imagine if you have to use the same fields, now you can refer to the search box and actually do a lot more work here. So let me show you how it will change our methods. So we define these fields at the top. If you are dealing with Darflow submit credit application, and let's say you have 50 fields, you can define all 50 fields at the top in the credit application class that includes the page object framework. Then you can simply let's see how this line changed. So I no longer need this line anymore, and I can simply do something like this: self dot search box. So I can refer to this IDs by name. So this is a name, and this it points to this ID on the which is a text field. So again, this is a button name which I have defined, but it points to the actual button element on the in the browser on the big page. Okay. So here I can simply, for entering the search criteria, I can simply say self.searchbox is equal criteria. So this is a criteria field that's coming from the step definition and from the steps. And here, search methods, I no longer need this. I can simply say self.search button dot click, or I can simply say search button. It will automatically click for us. Okay. So here I'm going to leave something like this, which will click the actual button. And the lastly, we'll be actually checking certain text. So here I'll say self.text.include, and I'll say criteria. Okay. So our methods will change, something like that, similar to this. So this, our class will become much smaller. Smaller means the code will become much smaller. The main reason it becomes smaller is we don't have to have this long field references in each and every method. We define the fields at the top, and then we use them by name in our different methods. And simply by assigning, if you have to assign certain value, then you can just assign like that. If you are checking, clicking on a button, then you can just simply do like that. As long as it's a button or link, it will do the link click by default. Okay, so let's go back to our steps and see how that one changes. So I come here, and now as I said, you no longer need to reference the objects like this. So I'll get rid of those lines first. And here, what we are trying to do in traditional way is to go to the page. So there are a couple of methods. So there is a visit method and on method. So what the visit method does is visit base page. So let me come back and let's see how it changes, actually going to the site. So I can do like that, or I can simply do like that, visit base page, and this is our class. Okay, this is a Bing search is our class. So what I'm providing instruction is visit Bing search, and at this point um, it will come here and go and execute the page URL. Okay, so that's the method is being called in the background, and it will actually navigate to this particular page. So here visit will actually simulate the page URL, actually our custom method using this page URL. Okay. So that's what it will do. So let's come back here. Now here the second thing, I need to enter search criteria, so I can simply say on Bing search dot enter search criteria and then search criteria. So if I go here on the Bing search class and I have this particular method, this is what I'm calling. It's still in class. Okay, so this is still a class, and I can call the methods as usual. So that's what I'm doing on Bing search and dot enter search criteria. Okay. Similar way, I can do the same thing here on Bing search. This time let me do a little bit different. So here you can call like this, or you can call something like that. So on Bing search class do page. So this one will pass a reference. This page will contain reference to the Bing search object. Okay, I can do page dot search. So if I go back here, I have a search method. That's what I'm calling. So I can either way will work. Okay, you can do like that or do like that search, and it should have the same behavior. But when you use this syntax for calling the methods, it will pass the object instance, and you can refer by object instance here. Now I can put page 1 and I need to change this to page 1. So this name doesn't matter. Okay, but I'm calling it a standard way page dot search. And the last piece would be to actually verify the results. So this time I'll use a simple syntax Bing search. Then I can say dot verify search result. Okay. Just make sure verify search results. That's the method name. So I'll go back here and put the right method name. Okay. So let's take a look at it. What we are doing with the class. So again, refer to this PowerPoint slides which you got in the email earlier. And but these two are very important methods: the visit and on base page, which is available through the page objects framework. And you'll always be referring to your objects something similar. Okay, same way. Um, and you can read upon these methods here. So let's go back and understand what changes we made. So we started out with this. There is no change here. It's a feature file, so we kept the feature file same. Then we went to the environment.rb and we added this line of code, and then the world object page factory module reference. Then in the hooks, we did initialize the browser instance and then closing the browser. Now let's say you want to change to Selenium tomorrow. You can simply change this line of code to refer to the Selenium, and that should take care of it. Okay. And let's come back here. The third thing we did was to actually modify our class. Bing search class, we included the page object. We defined this method to actually navigate to the URL, and then we define the fields at the top. So any field that you are interacting via automation, you need to define similar way. So this is the ID of the field, this is the type of the field, and this is the internal class name which points to this text field. Again, this is a internal class property that points to the button object on the sub that points to this Bing page. Okay. And the method you're gonna refer to the by name all the fields. So I have search box, and I'm setting the value. I have search button, and I'm setting the clicking on. And the last thing I'm including the verification process here. And now in the steps, I'm using the visit Bing search. This will take me actually to the Bing search page. And then once I'm on Bing search page, then I'm doing the search criteria entry. Then once I'm on the Bing page, then I'm doing the search click. Once I'm on the Bing page, then I'm verifying the search results. So this is the page object framework. And why we use page object framework? It's leverages OOP, and it promotes the code reuse and improves the maintainability. Think through. If you are using if the ID changes in the future for any of the fields on the pages, you just come back to this appropriate and change only one place. And since you are referring this buttons and text fields by name, internal names to the class, you don't have to change any of this logic here. Only place you change it here in the top once, and your code will work fine afterwards. Um, so let me go ahead and execute it and see if this one does the trick for us or throws any error. So I got the scenario pass. We have the browser instance, and it worked fine. So I'm hoping that you got the idea about the page objects, and you have plenty of examples to work through, specifically the calculator class and the login for the Darflown. Hopefully you guys can follow the similar way and complete your assignments. Thank you.